Hello, I'm Katie Steele, Southwest Climate Hub Coordinator and Director of the ARID Project at New Mexico State University.
And I'm Tanya Burnett. I'm the Education and Outreach Specialist at the National Drought Mitigation Center at the University of Nebraska in Lincoln.
And I'm Julie Elliott, here today to walk you through the current GrassCast maps for the Southern Great Plains. I recently retired from the Natural Resources Conservation Service as a rangeland management specialist.
There's a whole bunch of collaborators that make GrassCast possible, and the slide you can see is a quick tour of their logos.
Today, we're going to discuss the GrassCast forecast for the Southern Great Plains. And I just wanted to give you a reminder that GrassCast is a tool that gives you forage forecast for the growing season. And when you go to the tool, you'll see 3 different maps. Each map considers a different weather pattern for the growing season. Julie will be explaining how to best pick which map works for your location shortly.
So at this point, we usually look at the seasonal climate outlooks from the National Weather Service, but the latest version of these is going to be released on July 15th after we record this video. So we'll just remind you that from last time that the June 15th 3-month outlook suggested a fairly high probability of above average temperatures, which we can see that's really played out. And there was in most areas a leaning towards above average precipitation. But on June 15th, that was nowhere near a certainty. So we're going to see how this plays out during the season. But Julie will give you a little bit more of a discussion of precipitation to date when she introduces the maps.
For more detailed information about GrassCast and how it works, please see the June 16th video on the Southwest Climate Hub YouTube channel. Those of you in eastern New Mexico will want to consider what type of growing season you have before you decide if this video is the right one for you. Do you have a continuous growing season from spring until fall, or do you have 2 distinct growing seasons, one in the spring and one in the summer, with virtually no overlap between the spring grasses and the summer grasses? Now, if your growing season is continuous, then this is your video. But if you have 2 distinct growing seasons, you'll want to see the Southwest video on this YouTube channel.
Julie, how have the summer growing season conditions been so far in the Southern Plains?
If we look at the water year, which is October 1st to the current date, it's really a mixed bag. Southeast New Mexico and most of Texas have not kept the abundance of rains as indicated by their smaller and smaller areas of significantly more precipitation than the 1980 to 2022 average. This is indicated by the shrinking green colors out here, the dark green colors. But the orange areas in Oklahoma, Colorado, and Kansas, as we go across these 3 maps, we can see that they've retreated since the first part of June, indicating that those areas are picking up more moisture, although they're still significantly 5 to 25% behind the long-term average, as indicated by the color grid here of this orange that we can see. Not surprisingly, if we just look at the summer rainfall, there's a lot of green out there in most of the states, indicating 5 to 25% more precipitation with this yellow-green color, to 100% or more precipitation, the long-term average, indicated by the dark green color. These dark green areas, though, are getting smaller and smaller across Texas and New Mexico particularly, which is reflected in those water year maps we just looked at. The deficit in Southeast New Mexico is even greater than the water year maps.
Julie, I could see somebody wondering why the 2 sets of maps, the water year maps we just looked at and the growing season maps, look so different. Could you explain that?
I thought the same thing, Tanya. So I've set the 2 sets of maps together to help us understand what is happening. The top maps represent the precipitation received since April 1st. So this left map is to April 1st to June 12th, April 1st to June 26th, April 1st to July 11th, and it's the difference precipitation received this year compared to average precipitation 1980 to 2022. On the bottom are the water year maps. So the same dates, just looking clear back to October 1st to the current date of the map. There's less of the dark green colors in the bottom set of maps. because the October 1st to April 1st time period was pretty dry for most of the area compared to the long-term average. The rains since April 1st have been so much more than the 1980 to 2022 average that they've made up for that fall, winter, and early spring shortfalls. Now, this is except for areas like Southeast New Mexico, where we still see we're short, and the western part of the GrassCast area for Texas. Even Kansas, which has been hit hard for a couple years now with drought, is gaining ground, but the deficit is so much more than the excess that the total is still short.
So Julie, with all that rain since April, I bet the GrassCast maps have a lot of blue in them.
Here are the three maps with above average precipitation for most of the area on the left, near average in the middle, and below average on the right. And yes, there is a lot of blue, but this is pretty busy. So how about if I go through each map individually?
Let's start on the optimistic side maybe this time around and look at the
I like-
above average precipitation.
I like that idea. I feel badly for Southeast New Mexico because I keep having to say, except for, but here it is, except for Eddy County and the neighboring areas to the west and to the north, and then Andrews County into Texas. Most of the Southern Great Plains have no worries if precipitation is above the 1980 to 2022 average for the rest of the growing season. For those of you in the yellow and orange areas, this is the best that GrassCast model thinks it can be. I'm really hoping that you are well into implementing your drought plan, or maybe you even never stopped implementing it since early this year. I do want to caution our audience in Kansas. It's getting pretty late in the growing season, and you suffered severe losses last year, and some of you even the year before. If your rangeland was in good condition with an exceptionally deep and healthy root system, you might luck out with something near average production if rainfall continues to be in abundance, as GrassCast is forecasting. But that's a big might and terribly risky to count on.
So Julie, I'm guessing then that near average precipitation is going to expand those areas expecting losses.
Yes, it does, Katie. Almost all of Southeast New Mexico is forecasted to see at least a 15 to 30% loss in production, shown by this orange color, compared to that long-term average, as well as these Texas counties along the southern border of the GrassCast area. There's a few areas along the Oklahoma-Texas border and north central Kansas that also fall into that loss category, again, indicated by the orange color. GrassCast expects a lot of country to see at least 5 to 15% more production than average, indicated by the light blue color, and significant areas of 30% or more production than average, even with near average precipitation for the rest of the growing season.
I'm anticipating that maybe Southeast New Mexico, Southern Texas, and I'll bet even Kansas will see significant areas of forecasted losses if the rain shut off for the rest of the growing season.
No doubt, Tanya. Of course, less rain means less production, and the areas that have been in deficit precipitation so far will not improve with continued deficit. The areas forecasted to have above average production get smaller and smaller, as you can see by the shrinking blue. And those with below average production grow, as you can see by the expanding orange and expanding red and even the yellow colors. Notably, if the spigot shuts off, GrassCast expects most of the panhandle of Texas, the northeast corner of New Mexico, almost all of Oklahoma, Colorado, and far western Kansas to still see significantly above average production, even with below average precipitation for the rest of the growing season. Now, just a word of caution, this above average total production may be due to excessive growth of the spring grasses. These grasses will become about as tasty as straw to livestock with hot and dry weather. Cheatgrass could also be making up a significant portion of this above average production. And we know that once it gets ripe, nobody's eating it. We are far enough into the growing season that the stage has pretty much been set for the summer grasses. If they've done well so far, they could continue to do so, even if dry conditions show up. Likewise, if they've done poorly so far, they're just going to continue to be poor.
Thank you so much for the updates, Julie. I want to give everybody a quick reminder that GrassCast is forecasting total production, not grazable production. When a loss is expected, the grazable production loss will be significantly more than the total production lost. When an excess is expected, one needs to consider if that excess will be made up of the grass species that are tasty to animals and when they are tasty to those animals.
Thanks, Julie. Thanks, Tonya. So you can go to grasscast.unl.edu or just type GrassCast into your favorite search engine to find the GrassCast website. Here you can access the zoomable feature that will let you see more specific information about your area, including how much precipitation has been received so far at your location and how much more precipitation the forecast model expects will fall where you are. So depending on which precipitation numbers seem reasonable to you, that will give you the ability to choose which GrassCast map is applicable for your location. There are also several videos and tutorials that can help you interpret the maps. So thanks again, everybody. See you next time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.